Hey, how's it going? Right, so today, what I thought I would talk to you about is something completely different to anything that I've done before. I'm going to talk about one of the DC animated movies, because it's something that you know I watched this particular movie, Justice League: Gods and Monsters, a few days ago, and I thought that's really interesting. Why haven't they done more with this? Um, and then I found out that they made comics based off of this. They only made 3 issues for some weird reason, and they never really expanded on it anymore. Kind of, I guess, to do with the fact that the animated movie was straight to DVD, didn't get enough sales, not enough to make a actual sequel anyway. So they couldn't really expand on anything outside of a 3 issue miniseries, which I think was meant to be more, but they didn't really have. But not a lot of people read the comics as well. So today I'm going to be talking about Justice League: Gods and Monsters, which in my opinion, the most underrated and the most forgotten elseworld story in DC Comics continuity. So first off, I'm going to talk about the film, which the film is very interesting, right? So we have the three main trinity uh, of the Justice League. We have Superman, we have Wonder Woman, and we have Batman. Superman doesn't have the suit, he doesn't have the S on his chest. He's literally just a guy wearing a jacket, shirt, trousers, and he goes around actually killing people. Superman kills people in this universe because he is the son of, instead of Jor-El, he is the son of General Zod, who died at the the end of like the big apocalypse on Krypton, and he led his life believing that his father was Jor-El, who fought for the like the savior of Krypton, who fought for the protection of Krypton, but later finds out that his father was General Zod, who was a big massive piece of shit, which is why Lex Luthor goes against him in this continuity. Wonder Woman in this continuity is not an Amazon; she is actually a new god, and she was meant to marry Orion during a forced marriage. This forced marriage, of course, didn't happen. With Wonder Woman's mum trying to like kill off Orion's dad, who was Darkseid. A big fight ensued. Wonder Woman actually had fallen in love with Orion and wanted to get married, but Orion unfortunately died. So Wonder Woman was sent to Earth and fell in love with Steve Trevor. That all is kind of the same, but people see and look up to Wonder Woman as kind of this godlike figure, and no one really knows that she actually exists or not. Superman has made himself very known to the public eye. He's almost hated by everyone. People see him as kind of a threat, see him as too reckless. They almost see him as like one step away from being totally evil, and then no one will actually have any way to deal with him. Then we have Batman, where he, instead of being Bruce Wayne in this universe, he is Kirk Langstrom, who in the main continuity is the Man-Bat. And here Batman got his powers. He has actually got superpowers in this continuity. He has enhanced strength, and he is vampiric. Essentially, he's an actual vampire. He got his powers from like a blood transfusion with a vampire bat. Because why not? And turns himself into the Batman. He dresses up in this full-on like black and white suit, and apparently he can fly. I don't know if he can actually fly or if he can like glide as a gliding suit, but the comic shows him being able to fly somewhat. The film doesn't really show him flying at all. The antagonists of the film are these like three like robot things that were created by an old-time school friend of Kirk Langstrom's, and eventually Lex Luthor helps save the day through that. The big actual like crux of that is to set up the three protagonists and have it expand into a big wider universe. That's where the film leads off, and the very like important part of the film, the very important thing about the film is that it brings back Bruce Timm into the fold as like the cartoonist working on these films, because he hasn't worked on a DC film for quite some time, since like the 2003 Batman animated films. So yeah, Bruce Timm hasn't worked on anything in between that gap, and getting him back was kind of this big monumental thing. But of course the film didn't make enough money to see a sequel. But they did see comic books, and the initial 3-issue run, which I believe, to my knowledge, is the only like run of Justice League Gods and Monsters comics. It's interesting. It's good. It's not like, it doesn't do anything to really expand on the world building. It kind of just gives. It's literally just a first arc to give the characters something to punch, essentially, but nothing really happens though. It does. The way that the comics are like laid out and made and written, they are like longer length issues, so you'd think this would be a big deal, but the story inside them is, we get the team together in the first issue, we introduce a threat in the second issue, and then the third issue it's the big fight against Imperiax, who is a character that I hadn't had much like exposure to before this, so I had no idea what he was supposed to look like in the main universe. Now he is in this universe, but it's an interesting concept and an interesting storyline. And the thing with the comics as well is they did get Bruce Timm back to do the art on the comics as well. But there's the one problem that I have, and probably the main problem why this never took off, is because they only focused on the Trinity. There was no like actual like rush to bring in any more new characters throughout the runtime of the film, throughout the runtime of the comics. There was nothing to be excited for, really. There was nothing to grab onto. There was hardly any push for the actual film. It wasn't like there was nowhere that was actually promoting this film. It wasn't being promoted on a site. It wasn't being promoted even in the comic books. It was literally like a trailer was put up on YouTube, and then that's it. There was no like actual like promotion for this film, which is why it didn't do very well, even though the film itself is very good. And it would have been interesting to see where they would have gone forward, to see this universe's take on take on classic villains like the Joker, and Cersei and Cheetah and the Bat Rogues Gallery, and to see this version of Batman go up to a version of Man Bat, and to see if that's a complete role reversal where Bruce Wayne is Man Bat in this universe. That would be interesting to see, but alas, they can't do it now because they didn't make the money. Because they kind of went with the not very smart option of trying to change characters that weren't very popular and weren't well known in the first place. So it's not a obvious change really when you see a character like Imperiex, where you'll think, oh, he's a brand new character for this storyline. He's brand new for this universe, and we get to see like this stark transition from Superman. That's the thing that I love about what this like Elseworld story brought, is the darkness of these characters. Like, we saw a Batman that killed. We saw a Batman that couldn't survive without like having to kill people. We saw a Superman that was fucking brutal. We see him like snap people's necks. We see him use his like laser vision and kill people. And Wonder Woman, she just... First of all, it's implied that she has a lot of sex with a lot of different people, which is, that's an interesting route to go with Wonder Woman. It's also like discovered that she has like it's weird. Her character's weird. She's probably the least like brutal of these characters, but she is still very brutal in how she works as a character. That's kind of all I have to say. It would have been very interesting to see how they would have like built up this universe going forward, and it certainly grabbed my attention. It sparked my attention seeing a darker, more not realistic but more gritty version of these characters that are very larger than life in the main continuity. Like seeing a Boy Scout be turned into kind of an anti-hero, that's very interesting to see, and I really enjoyed it. It's just a shame that they either weren't given the time, they weren't given the creative freedom to actually, to actually expand on what they wanted to do. Or maybe they did do what they wanted to do, they told the story that they wanted to tell, but with the story that they did end up telling, I have I have a lot of doubt that this is the story that they wanted to tell. But yeah, Justice League Gods and Monsters as an Elseworlds story works well. As an actual business venture for DC, it did not work at all. And most of that is problems that DC has. They don't promote their animated films. They don't promote anything that they do outside of the big budget cinema release films. Even the one animated movie that they did give a cinematic release to, The Killing Joke, that didn't get promoted hardly at all. Like, when was the last time you flipped on the TV and you saw trailers to an animated DC movie? And how many trailers did you see to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? You see my point. Now, none of the DC animated movies have had the budget and had the amount of time and work go into them as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did. But it would be nice to see DC like promote the good movies that they're making, because the animated movies are much better than the live action ones. I mean, maybe Shazam is the only one that's like on par with the animated films, but I don't know, maybe DC should just stick to what they're good at and promote what they're really good at, which is the animated movies, and they should give the Gods and Monsters universe another look, because it is worth it, and it is worth expanding upon. It is worth doing a lot more with, because I feel like there's a lot more for this to give, and there is a definite audience for it. I'm part of that audience. That's pretty much it. All of my social medias are in the link in the description below. Again, thinking about doing some live streaming on Twitch. I should probably change my name and change my account and rework and rejigger that before I actually, do any promotion for that. But if you start seeing my Twitch pop up around somewhere, please do pop over there. Give me a follow. Give me some whatevers. See you guys in the next video. Peace.